Good morning and welcome to Dualitea. I'm your host, Akasha, and today we are talking about a few different topics. One being retrograde, one being Rona, one being mental health, one being presence. So, right now, I want to start off by setting the intention and the space for I'm no doctor, I am no therapist, I am what I am. I have certifications in the places that I do, but most importantly, I have the experiences that I have. And I chose to talk about this topic because at the end of 2020 and for New Year's, I was gifted the experience of having Rona. And that was very intense for me. So I figured since it's so taboo to speak on it, I believe that somebody should. And especially someone who is very much so affected by it. It wasn't something that was mild for me and or my loved ones around me. It was something that was affecting us and still is, dealing with the aftermath of it. And although I can talk about things in a light manner, doesn't mean that they aren't heavy. It just means that I'm navigating through them and I've sat with them and processed it and given presence to it to the point where I feel like I can speak on it. So I took my actual quarantine and then I had my emotional quarantine because after you experience something like that, you it's definitely jarring to think about being around anybody when you're taking that time and you're going inward, and it for physical reasons, for the safety of yourself and others. And it's just interesting how it affects everybody. And yeah, for me, it was like I get like seasonal allergies. And at the end of the year, I call them like backwards allergies because I don't really get them in the beginning or like when it's spring and things like that. But I was feeling sinus pressure. And that was consistent for a while. And then I started feeling more sinus pressure. And I was just like I took note of it. And then it started kind of manifesting more and coming on stronger. And when I knew for sure, I was eating these birria tacos, which slapped. Like, they were so good. I never had them. I wanted to get them so bad. I finally got them, and I'm sitting there, and the day before I'd woken up and I was congested, so I was already like, okay, like I'm gonna make sure I just like monitor myself this week and stay away from everybody. I had already called out of work, and I was just kind of taking the responsible steps at that time, even prior, even when I was not even sure. Then I'm eating this taco, and I stopped tasting it like mid. I would say like maybe my second taco. I like dipped it into the custom. I don't know what it's called. Some fancy word for like broth dip, and I just didn't taste it anymore. And I was just like, wait, what? And at that moment, I was like, oh, everything possibly bad that I could think of in that moment was just like, it happened. It happened. I went through all of 2020, and now it's like January 2nd or whatever day it was. And this is it. This is what 2021 has given to me. And then I had to, go through the process. It's like shock, grieve. There's so many different things, especially when fear is in the forefront. No matter what you believe in, no matter whether you listen to the news or you don't watch the news and you listen to, other sources or deep truthers or whatever your origin is in how you go about this, it's fear-based. There's so much fear to it. It's like we can't escape it unless we really bring that presence within ourselves in any moment, So yeah, it started becoming more of a reality, and I was like navigating through it. And at first it was just like so much anxiety. I'm like, everything I'm doing, I'm like just trying not to die, like making sure that I am sitting up while I'm sleeping and that I am moving. Like, most importantly, like moving. Like, I kept on feeling like I didn't want to move, like I didn't want to do nothing. And I was like, all right, I gotta get up. I gotta dance. I'll put on music that I love. Like, I'll blast this music. I'll do this. I'll take a shower. And I'm very grateful that I contacted my elder and his family, and he had helped me with passing on a few different things that I can do as far as like teas and, you know, different herbs and different steams that you can do, which I highly recommend. You know, doing steams, you want to get that moisture in your chest, in your lungs. For me, it was like very chest. It was very like pressure in my chest, my lungs, which is already a weak spot and had been a weakened spot for me out of years of being a smoker. And not only that, but also I truly believe that any illness is tied to an emotional response and a trauma. So you can look at that from the science base. You could look at books like The Body Keeps Score as something to inquire on if you're interested in that. And then you could also look at a book like Heal Your Body, I believe it's called, by Louis L. Hayes. And that's the spiritual meanings to why we have the things that we have. It's difficult, especially when we're going through troubling times, to think that there's a reason, you know. And I know at horrible times of my life, people said, well, oh, you know, everything happens for a reason. It's like not what you want to hear at your father's wake and things like that. But yeah, no, it is true. Everything does happen for a reason. People definitely should take social cues and be a little bit more emotionally, you know, aware when saying it. But the reason isn't always good. But everything does come from something. There is a root cause to everything. What we experience is symptoms of that root cause. So how deep are we willing to go down into it to find that? And, you know, it's like for me, I had just finished like parasite cleanse. I was super vulnerable and susceptible and before contracting it. And yeah, it was just really, really interesting how it all flowed in the way it did, because I felt so awesome. I was like, oh, I'm like, I got rid of all these toxins, and it's like I made space for something new. But in one way or another, you know, it had to happen. For me, in my experience, I realized a lot of things in the time that I was by myself and isolating and quarantining. And, you know, you always think that you do something. Like, you know, I'll meditate, I'll sit with myself, I'll give myself that time alone. But then when you have like literally no option, you can't escape certain parts. Or you really can actually. You can escape everything, even when you're locked up in your house. Like, but it was the times that I wasn't on my phone. It was the times that I put it down. It was the times that I wasn't on social media. It was the times that I was really just like in my body. And I kept on witnessing how much my brain was contributing to how I was feeling. Like my thoughts were contributing to how I was feeling. I wasn't just feeling things. It was like very thought oriented. So it's like all of my anxiety was coming from my thoughts, because my anxiety of worrying about the future, worrying about other people, worrying about myself. You know, this is not in the present moment, not like, okay, I'm going to give attention to myself to make sure that X, Y, and Z doesn't happen, and or getting caught up in the past and getting like in depressive spaces where I'm like, oh, I remember this, or I remember that, or oh wow, I feel like I was so much further along in this time in my life, or that time. And it's like, it's these illusions, you know, that we conjure up from our pain body, and that being all of our experiences and our ego, and our, not to villainize our ego, because our ego is literally built as protection for ourselves. You know, if something happens in our life where we are hurt, and whatever it is that we can do that's the quickest and easiest to get away from being hurt, our ego will adapt. So we may have these coping mechanisms that helped us to do or to get out of hurtful situations that may not suit us anymore. You know, if you believe that people that you loved weren't good, or if you've seen for their truth and you believed it, and say it was like a caretaker or a family member or a partner, you would have had to have a loss, which would have hurted you emotionally, right? When you needed, say, emotional support, or you were like kind of using that person or thing or as a crutch or as survival, you know, say it was a parent or whatever the case is. If you think as a child that is true, then you are coming to a reality that you can't really do anything about. Say you're 7 years old, like you can't just go move out and do what you have to do. Therefore, our ego builds these constructs so that we're like, okay, well, I must be crazy then, or that must not be real. And we cope in that way. But then at a certain point, it becomes outdated. So then how do we realize what's outdated? It's like a computer, you clean it up, you defrag it, you consolidate, you go into these different parts of your mind, your body, your emotions, and you tune in to what it feels like. What is it? Is it suiting you anymore? Is it suiting you to be aggressive because you're afraid to be hurt? Is it suiting you to constantly be evading the present moment because the present moment has always been so intense? That's something that I actually came to the conclusion the other day. Like, I was on the phone with Josh. Shout out to you, Josh. I was speaking with him, and I was on the phone, and I was like scrolling on my phone. Like, I'm on the phone, but I'm scrolling on my phone while I'm talking to him, which I'm used to my whole life, most of my life, as far as I can remember, just like doing multiple things at once. And that, if we're talking symptomatically, that could be called like ADHD, right? So when you dissect that, or you sit with that for a second, ADHD is constantly being distracted, not being in the moment. So I noticed myself not being in the moment and scrolling, and I stopped. And once I stopped doing that, I stood up and I started pacing. And then once I stopped pacing, once I realized I was pacing, and then I went into the mirror and I was like, all right, I'm going to pop a pimple. And I was like, wait, no. And I was like, now I'm going to tweeze my eyebrow. And I was like, wait, why am I doing so many things at once? What am I evading? And it wasn't that I was evading the conversation that I was having with him. It's just a coping mechanism because I was listening to it to the amount of to the capacity that I could. And it was just a really big revelation for me to realize that in the moment as it was happening. So that I say that to bring light to presence and how important it is. Presence, and not in like the cliche way, like, oh, you just have to be present. And like, listen, people say cliche things are really real. Like, we like to roll our eyes to simplified words because we are so complex and unique and individual. But that is a lot of times, yes, we are. We are, absolutely. But just as we are different, we are very much so similar as human beings. And we experience different things that can relate to others, and that being one. So when you're present, nothing can take control of you. When we have these panics and anxieties, it's that fear of like what could happen. So if we get out of the scenarios in our mind and into our heart space, into my breath, this moment, well, what can I do right now? Can I handle it right now? No, if I can't handle it right now, what can I do right now? And I feel like that helps. I know for me, I could get very overwhelmed. That's something I will set 17 different things to do in one day, like ridiculous expectations, and beat myself up when I don't get it done. I feel that when you bring yourself to that present moment, you are able to digest things better. Like, you're able to, oh, okay, well, I know that I want to have this goal, say this goal of saving $200 by the end of the week. Instead of like worrying how you're going to get the money, maybe start breaking down how much money you would need to save a day, and not worrying about how you're going to obtain it, but just making the tangible plan and then creating the space. Because that's the thing about manifestation. That's the thing about a lot of things, is like, we can manifest all day long. Like, you could sit there, you could light your candle, you could do your ritual, you can, whichever you believe in, however you believe in manifesting, whether it's mental based, spiritual based, for me, it's both. It's all things. If you're going to manifest something, what if you don't have any room for it? What if everything you prayed for, you're hoping and dreaming will come knocking down your door, but your door's shut because you've put everything, you owned in your closet instead of actually cleaning it up and organizing it and seeing what's there. We have to take tally, for lack of better words, or something. I don't know. I don't remember the word I was trying to say. Anyway, it doesn't matter. For what we have to see what we have in order to know what we want, right? And then what we want to make space for, what we don't want anymore. If I have this shirt that don't fit me, why do I have it? I could give that to someone. It could be giving someone else joy. And that's like Marie Kondo, the whole idea of anybody that has hoarding or anything of that nature to pick something up and to be like, okay, does this bring me joy? And then like feel it. Like for me, when I do things like that, I'll use my body like a pendulum. So if it's a yes, I'll ask my body, I'll close my eyes, I'll say, show me yes. And yes tends to be like leaning forward and no tends to be pushing back. So if I want to do something or if something's for me, even if I'm in the supermarket, if I'm being mindful and I'm being present and in my whole being, this is how I shop for anything. I'll ask myself, do I need this? And I'll be like, yes, no. Okay, if I'm not in my body, I say I go to food shopping, I'm hungry. Now I'm emotionally eating. So what am I getting? I'm getting whatever I'm in the mood for. And that's not always good, And that's something that I especially had to sit with last night. And that was a really intense experience. Even last night I had like such an interesting experience. I'm not going to get too much into, but essentially there was so many things that happened in such a short amount of time. I was in so much pain from like eating something, like I had eaten something. I knew even prior to eating this that I wasn't even hungry, but I was gifted it. So I was like, oh, okay, like I'll eat it. It's food, it's in front of me. And, I like food and I like this food and I like this person's cooking. So let me just eat it anyway. And my stomach was like going crazy and I felt like nauseous. I was going to throw up, and I literally haven't been in so much pain. I don't even know in so long. And even this is saying even after contracting COVID, even after having like it's such an intense experience. This experience last night with eating this food was the most painful. I felt the pain in my toes. And how I got myself out of it was I listened to myself. I listened to what I needed to do next. I knew I needed to throw up. I made space to go throw up. I knew I needed to make a steam. I just grabbed the different herbs that I knew I needed and I made the steam, and I could barely walk, and I just knew what I needed to do. I knew what I needed to do, and I just trusted and I believed in it, and I stayed present instead of worrying like, oh my God, what the fuck am I going to do? I'm going to die. I need to go to the hospital. Did those thoughts come up? Absolutely. And then every time they did, I went back into my heart and I was like, what you going to do about it right now? What you going to do about it right now? Are you going to wait for someone else or something else to help you when you can help yourself in this moment? And I believe that even in the most extreme things, even in the most extreme like medical situations, I believe that when you bring yourself into that awareness within your body that you can help, even if it's to the point where you can't like obviously do surgery on yourself, I believe that in the moment, if you stop getting into the future and you start getting into the present, and you'll be able to at least hold yourself to the space that you'll be ready for someone else to help you further. So it's not to negate like, oh, you don't need anybody. No, we definitely do need help with things sometimes. But in order to get the full experience and really penetrate healing within our being, it all starts with us. It all starts with presence and making that known within ourselves in every moment. You don't just become present. It's a constant working effort. Like I highly recommend, reading or listening to an audiobook, The Power of Now. I don't know why I had such resistance to it for so long, but I've been listening to it like on repeat for the past week or so. And yeah, it just shows you. It's just another thing. Like it maybe that resonate, maybe it won't. But what I just think is so important is to always go back to yourself. And so you can do that by even like just tapping yourself on the forehead, tapping yourself on the heart, doing different tells when you start noticing yourself like out of your body in scenarios, in different things, like just like remind yourself that you're here, that you're in your body. And yeah, it's been really, really interesting just going through the different notions and different emotions. And it's wild too, because like once you say that you had Rona, so many people are like, oh yeah, me too. And the thing is, people are so afraid to talk about it because of all the fear that's behind it. It's like naturally, if you do what you need to do, you take care of yourself, you quarantine, you be responsible about it. For me, it's like I said before, I quarantined and then I emotionally quarantined because I just needed to like stay within myself. And I still feel like that. I'm still recovering from that. I still feel very much so like I don't want to be around people. I certainly don't want to be around big groups, and it's just telling because you become more aware of who you want to be around and what you want to spend time with. And also it's a blessing as far as the way that we can communicate with others, that we have the accessibility of Zoom and different video chats where we can communicate with people while we're still in our own house and in our own space. And as a very emotionally sensitive, energetically sensitive person, it's beneficial. It's really beneficial to just be in my own space. So I'm grateful for that, you know. And another thing that I wanted to touch base on, I don't have the paper right here, but yeah, you know, something that had happened that was really like, I have them right here, really close and affected me in a really big way. And I know I'm talking about this topic that could be heavy for a lot of people, and I have so much compassion and love for all the people that have lost anyone due to this and all of the trauma and everything that has happened from this pandemic. And I just want to remind all of you that just because I'm talking about something and like once again, I'm not making light of a situation. I have a tendency, I can talk light about heavy situations, and I feel like it's just really important that someone's talking about it, especially someone who has experienced it themselves. My mother was actually in the hospital for 11 days. It was like a series of events. There's so many different things. It was like I experienced it, my sister experienced it. There's so many different layers, right? And then my mother, she ended up, her oxygen was down to 70. I had a like weird dream about my mom and my cousin. Like I woke up, I reached out to them, and my elder had told me to get the oximeter like a week before, but then for whatever reason I had like forgotten. Then I remembered the day before. Anyway, it arrived, and my mother had asked me to go pick up something from the pharmacy, and I was like, wait a second, let me just get this thing. Mind you, like I've never used the oximeter before. Not that it's hard, now I understand, but like I never did. So I was just like, for whatever reason, I need to check your oxygen. You know, I don't even know what's the normal ratio, but let's do it. And I did it, and it was so low, and we thought maybe it was broken. We put on me, and it wasn't. And then I seen like that panic in my mom's face, and I knew that it was like, all right, it's time. Like she needs to go to the hospital, because at that point, like I was already feeling better, but she wasn't, and that was, you know, naturally concerning. My mother being in her 60s, you know, so yeah, so she went to the hospital. She had a whole bunch of different things. I'm just looking at the notes that she wrote. She said it started like a cold. She had body aches. She started to feel the pain too much, but she was in denial of it. That's the thing too, is like you'll be in denial of it. You're like, nah, I don't have that. What, like for my mom, she never lost her scent and taste. But once I lost my scent and taste, I was like, nah, that's it. I know it. I know what it is. That's that. And yeah, so by the time she got there, she was on oxygen. She was on like the really big oxygen one. And my mother's a nurse. She's an RN. She's been doing this for, I believe, over 30 years. And she specifically works in the labor and delivery side and in the clinic also. So she works with women and a lot of things centering that. You know, so she hasn't been a patient really. And they had her in there, and she got to like really get to see what it was like to be on the other side. She said that she wasn't in the room for a while. Like it took a few days for her to get to a room. There was a lot of things, and I know like naturally the hospitals are doing the best they can. And then also she had experiences where, you know, certain people weren't doing the best they can. And as a nurse, like, and seeing that side, I know that it definitely motivated my mom to want to do something to help these people in these moments, especially in these critical moments. She said that there was a nurse that came in that helped her and was really attentive to her and like looked at her as a person and like showed love and affection. And that changed her whole day, you know, rather than people that are just in and out. And, you know, naturally everyone's doing the best that they can in the moment. But once again, everything goes down to presence. When you're doing something, you're like focused on the next thing. you're not noticing, even looking at somebody and smiling could make a huge difference in their day. And that applies to everything, everything. And something that she had taken from this experience, that she said that she's so grateful for a second chance at life, and that me and my sisters, her daughters, that were there to take care of her, and for her friends that visited her, and the people that checked in on her. And something that I noticed that happens also is like for most of us is like, especially with anything, but what I'm speaking on COVID in specific right now is like anxiety is the biggest thing that I feel like hinders you from healing. That fear, when you're operating from that fear place, it's like that healing doesn't have the space to come in because you're so focused on the fear. And I know it's not easy. I literally lived it. Like, I know it's not easy. And it's constant effort to go back to yourself and go back and go back and go back and be like, okay, I'm here. What's next? You know, and you might think in your head like, oh, okay, I need to eat cherries. Like, eat cherries. Don't doubt yourself. Listen to your intuition. For whatever reason, those cherries might have some mineral or something in it that is going to assist in your benefit for whatever it is that you are experiencing. Listen to yourself. What's a better source than you to know what's going on within you? We have years and years of different mind manipulations, whether it be conscious or subconscious, to not believe ourselves, to not listen to ourselves, to think that anyone and everything is better or more qualified of a source. But when you are sitting with yourself completely alone and say there's nobody to help you, what are you going to do then? When you look death in the face and you're like, like not in the sense of like, all right, I want to, but not in the sense of like, I'm so afraid of. When you can accept these different things, because the truth is you're going to die so many times before you die. If you allow yourself to, it's a gift. And that is transmutation. That is transition. That is growth. You know, how many times does a snake shed its skin? How many times do different things in nature constantly change and shift? Like trees die every year. Technically they don't, but like, you know, they lose their leaves, which looks like their life, right? So they look like they're dead, but they're not. You might look and feel like you're dead, but you're not. And sometimes you need these extremes to shake you up. I know with myself, like I started getting comfortable with certain things in my life. I was aware of it, but I wasn't changing it yet. And then I feel like that's why I got slapped in the face with this in 2021, because it's like, you're aware of it. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? Because you're just moving with awareness and then disassociating from it because you're afraid to do that or you're overwhelmed to do that. And once I stop beating myself up about it, once I give myself, because it's not a done deal. Like I'm consistently working at it. Once you stop beating yourself up for what you haven't done, and once you realize that you don't really need anything from the past. Naturally, if you're going to go into the past for a reason, or to do something, to work on something, to bring something forward, to say you're writing a book or something, you know, of course, these things can be beneficial, but you don't need to carry your past on your shoulder. You aren't your past. And I know it's a hard thing to digest because we get so attached, to what our past is. Like, oh, well, I am this story. I experienced this trauma and this is my story, and how can I not be this? But what if you woke up tomorrow with amnesia? Who would you be? Who would you be? If you woke up tomorrow and you had no recollection of anything that's ever happened to you in your past, what would your personality be like? What would you be like? Really think about that. If you didn't have anything binding you to certain core beliefs, when you feel like that inability to want to change things, like note that, you know, it's good to stand up for what you believe in. I'm firm in that, you know, like if we have a conversation, I strongly believe in something, like we're going to have a strong conversation. but I'm not closed off to change or being open to learning more, even though that could be difficult. It's a constant test of awareness, so I know also for my mother, she was experiencing a lot of turbulent emotional situations, and shout out to her, because she like broke herself out of a cycle that she has had in her life, and I'm sure her mother had in her life, and I know that I acquired it in my life and have been avidly working and unpacking it. And she got out of really toxic situation and was like really liberating herself, and naturally this happened. So it's so interesting how we get tested in these ways that we do. So we have to choose whether we're going to allow ourselves to look at it in a victim mindset, in a villain mindset, or if we can find some neutral in between. And once again, it's not going to happen overnight. And it's something you avidly have to work towards, something you constantly have to bring yourself present towards. And when you start looking at experiences like this had to happen for me to see this, because I know for me, like, these extreme lessons happen because I could be stubborn. Like, my spirit is like, psh, girl, your human is just so stubborn. We need to like just shake up your entire reality. Here's the Tower card. Sit with that. And I'm like, all right, why? And I'm like, why? Because you created it, because you love extremes. Okay, if you have extremes all over your life, paint your room gray and start and sit and look at it. Understand what gray is. I'm working on gray. I've always working on gray, and that's what duality is about, is finding the balance. That line in between the two, like just walking in that middle path and not being too here, not being too there, and allowing yourself to just constantly, when you start feeling yourself deviate from that balance, going back in, always going back in within. I did also want to touch base on retrograde. I did want to touch base on retrograde. I'm not going to get too into it. But right now is also retrograde. So just as everything, like, it's like a theme with everything I'm talking about in this moment, whereas retrograde is when Mercury, well, specifically we're talking about Mercury retrograde. Retrograde can happen on any planet. Mercury, the planet Mercury that controls communication and of all sorts, like technology, things like that. It appears to be going backwards, but really it slows down in rotation. So this is a time where our phones might be spazzing out, computers might be working, people are distracted, things are not going as fast as they naturally do, right? And especially if you live in a city, or we're here in New York City, people don't like that. Want it to be very fast. And like, look at what just happened. We had a whole snowstorm that slowed things down. Today it was like I had shoveled my car out for hours yesterday, and then today I went and the plow had pushed all the snow right back onto my car, so I couldn't go. So I had to hit up an Uber and like adapt and be open to that change. When you're open to that change, you can flow with it. When you're not open to the change, then you're just going to stay pissed and probably attract more or walk into more situations that are of that vibration of this anger, that of lack of control. The only thing we can control is how we react. Like, the only thing we control is how we then move with what is given to us. We cannot control other people. When you start trying to control other people, you're going to get yourself fucked up. I'm not even going to try to say it to you nicely. You're just going to get yourself fucked up. And like, you'll learn, like, just things come back. They come back. You are not anybody to control anybody else. You are you. Do not try to play God. Do not try to do anything outside of that, manipulate things. Naturally, we have compassion if we have coping mechanisms that have brought us to that light to do these things like that, but it's not something to be proud of and or glorify, which unfortunately I do see a lot in a lot of things on like Instagram. I've been noticing for years, but especially in the more recent years, just like glorifying hexing and love spells and all these manipulations. And I just highly recommend to ask yourself what it is that you want, like, and work on you, not try to control anybody else. If you're concerned if somebody loves you or not, like, ask yourself if you love you or not. Like, don't try to put someone's name in a honey jar to like sweeten them into your life, because you do that, and then you'll see it just might not end up great, because we're not built to do that. You can get anything that is received quick, like just easy and quick, like you notice you don't even want it. The best things in life and the most, I feel, integral things are earned in time and tangible steps, and it's not just a quick. And I understand also, as an intense person, as an extreme person, I want it to be like that at times. I want to be like, oh, okay, boom, like I'm better at everything now. I've done this. Oh, okay, I picked up this new hobby. I'm great at it now. Like, no, I'll get there. And the medicine is in the process. So getting into that present moment with everything, so important. So important. Yeah, I'm sure that there's so many other things that I could talk about in this topic, but I'm not feeling called to in this moment. I know that there's also a lot of like other remedies and different things for people that have been done and passed on from others that are working to heal themselves in a more natural way. That's something that if you're ever interested in, you can contact me personally. I could either share my experience or give you references. I think it's important that we also know that I've seen there's like some really good threads that are going around about like, different things you can do when you contract the virus and how you can treat it at home. But I haven't really seen more of a holistic one. It's very much so like, still like do Advil and these different things. And there's other herbs that you can also work with if you're open to that, and that's something that's in your journey, or if someone that could help someone But most importantly, it's I believe it's a mental virus. It's a mental virus before anything else. Yes, it's physically present, and it has an effect on you. But it affects your mind in a way that you become your own poison. But the thing is, even poisons can be antidotes. It's just the matter of dosage. So I leave you with that. And I'm going to touch base on some cards that I pulled. And hey, Keith. And so the cards that I pulled were, hey, Lori. Oh, hi. I read your prayer right before I came on here. Yeah, love you. Thank you for being here. So I pulled these cards for everybody who is listening now, anybody who listens in the future, in any spectrum. This card is about what we need to surrender to right now. So this card says, surrender to the outdated beliefs of yourself. Let go of limiting ideas about yourself that originate from the past. Then you can own your power and soar in your life. So that is this card. It's a tree. And it's yellow. So it's all about solar plexus. And it's what we were talking about before. Take inventory. That's the word I was trying to say before. Inventory. Take inventory of the things that you have. Defrag, clean up, get rid of, and make space for the things that you want. What should we do right now for ourselves as far as self-care? Create art. So whatever that means to you, whether that's painting, whether that's graphic designing, whether that's picking out an awesome outfit, whatever it is for you, create art. Also, speaking of, I just want to give a shout out real quick. This is hand painted by my new friend Tusomo, and her Instagram is at M0MOART, Momo Art. She hand painted this. Okay, not only is it Kakashi, this is on a thrifted shirt, right? This is Kakashi right here, you already know. And he got the Ninja War on his headband. It's not even just a leaf, like it's a special kind of. This is incredible. I needed to shout that I meant to say earlier. Thank you to Somo. Thank you for your energy and your love that you put into this, and love it. And this is my first time wearing it, so I'm excited. I said I was going to wear it when I came back into the studio, and I am. So thank you for giving me this piece of happiness and applying your medicine and creating your art on it. So create art, people, whatever that means to you, whether it's singing, poetry, dancing, you are art, create something. These two cards came up in the traditional tarot, and it's kind of like what's being presented right now. And it's like you can let down your guard. You don't have to keep fighting with yourself because it's hindering you from moving forward and taking action. When you are getting in the way of your own actions because you're in your mind or because you're fighting and it's good to have fire, but not too much, right? These are two fire cards. Like, it's good to have fire, but not too much. Now, it's good to have all elements, but just not too much of anything. Once again, finding balance. Finding balance is so important with everything. So start feeling into your other parts. You know, tune into your body, tune into your heart, tune into presence. And for anyone and everyone that's here with me, thank you for tuning in. I invite you to close your eyes for a second and just check in with yourself. Taking a deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. And just going into that space. Everything that we ever need is in the silence. It's in the stillness. It's in the place that we avoid the most. So go check it out and investigate. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you next week.